Okay, so I guess we're up and rolling. I am live from a McDonald's somewhere in the lower 48 states. And I titled this, last final update on the Miracle deal, because I'm not really sure if indeed it is the final, but there's a possibility that it is. The buyer wants specifics from the seller. The seller is happy to provide those, but wants specifics from the buyer first. In an arrangement like this, and I think I might have mentioned this stuff, so if it's old news, act accordingly. The seller has an asset. There's proof that the asset exists, and there's documents, a paper trail, that kind of thing. There's also from the buyer the potential for proof that the buyer has the funds to pay the seller the agreed upon price, which is, ginormous. If the seller isn't real, what happens is the buyer is risking the proof of life, such as, if it's a bond, there's usually photographs of the bond and the passcode or whatever type of authentication there is, and of course they cover the number of the bond, because if your bond number gets out, somebody can claim that they hold that bond because they've got the number. And in that event, the bond having any kind of cloud on the actual ownership becomes a toxic asset. Nobody wants it. So you can't afford to have, your bond shopped. Okay. So you have to find out you're dealing with a real buyer before you give them the actual bond number and information. You just can't take the chance. If I'm the buyer and I give you a proof of funds that shows you I have, 40, 11 billion, trillion, zillion dollars, and it's blocked, for a limited period of time for a certain event, purchase, what have you. Aside from having my money blocked for so many days, I'm not really risking anything, and nobody can take that proof of funds and turn it against me or make my money, my cash, toxic. They can't do that. So I agree with the seller that he needs to see proof of the buyer's ability to pay before he gives up, a proof of funds. I mean, a proof of life, it's called a POL, or or anything along those lines. So, but nobody cares what I think, and it doesn't really matter anyway. So there you have it. I hope we can put this thing back together, but there's too many people. If I had, a direct line to the buyer over here and a direct line to the seller here, I think I could negotiate and put it together, but I don't. There's people, they came to me and asked me, can you find a buyer? I made 2 phone calls. I found a buyer, an entity that said that they could buy and they were interested. So we gave them the basics and just a little bit of POL and proof of life. And they made an outrageous offer, way bigger than the seller was looking for. The seller doesn't know what the offer is. Yeah, they do now. Yeah. But lack of faith. So with lack of faith comes loss of deal. The commissions on this were, big numbers, hundreds of B, like Plano. So I was going to share a lot of that around and try to do some good in the world, but I'm not certain if I'm going to be able to do that or denied the chance to go through it in that regard. So it is what it is. You guys take care. and we'll be back in touch soon. End stream? Are you sure? Yeah, that's why I pushed end.